Welcome, dear viewer, to Education Forum here at UBC, where we go back to the principles of our education. Uganda at one time was the center of education excellence in Eastern Central Africa. Now, how do we get back to there, or how do we sustain ourselves up there? Is so that more and more African students can come here for better education. Now, today we're looking at the role of the diaspora in the development of education here in Uganda. With me in the studio is Mr. Nathan Gahungu, who is actually the chairperson of Association for Promotion of Sustainable Education Services in Uganda. You're welcome, Nathan.
Thank you.
Yes, and also online from the US, we are also joined by the president of Uganda North American Association. I can say Her Excellence Henrietta Wamala Senabulya. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure actually having you on the show. Now, a quick one. Let's begin with Uganda North American Association, or UNA in short. What is your education agenda for Uganda?
When it comes to UNA, UNA has been promoting anything that has to do with education through our partnerships and collaborations with people that we come across when we are trying to build those partnerships in Uganda. For instance, when you come to our forums or the conventions that we have, the annual conventions, you'll find that some of the partners that come aboard with us people who are either coming to promote their schools that they are building in Uganda, schools that are either running already in Uganda, or even those that are promoting reading services and helping put libraries together in Uganda. Especially this year, we have an organization that's coming to do exactly that at the convention, to create awareness and show what works they are doing in Uganda, especially when it has been with this COVID times. They are trying to promote readership, especially for those people who are in the remote villages, for children that are not in school, and by trying to make sure that they bring the libraries to those children at home. So when it comes to education, all I can say is UNA puts that as one of its highest priorities when it comes to helping people in Uganda.
Yeah, thank you very much, Henrietta Wamala Senabulya, the president of Uganda North American Association. Now, back here in studio, Nathan, you widely traveled. Yeah, let's look at, of course, how NGOs in Uganda should work with the diaspora in promoting education, especially now during COVID. We realize that the education sector is more hit. So how do you lobby our kin in the diaspora to support the cause of education in Uganda?
First of all, I want to appreciate the diaspora abroad. I think they are doing a good work, like Henrietta Wamala Senabulya. We have a lot of them. They are supporting our economy. They are supporting their sisters and brothers in education. And indeed, most of them, when they are there, they focus mainly on education. Now, when you go abroad, especially in the developed countries, you find that a large percentage of the younger people are at school. In fact, one day I was in one city in the UK. I moved in a city, I couldn't see any young person, meaning that their focus is mainly on education. Now, we need this diaspora to refocus their support to education by working in collaboration with the NGOs in Uganda. They pick out NGOs which are capable of helping students and pupils in Uganda. For instance, we have been collaborating with a few people in education, and as a result, we have been able to map out those students and children in the slum areas of Kampala who need support. For example, if you look at Katanga, if you look at Bwaise, we have very many young girls, very many younger children who are on the streets, yet they would get an advantage of going to school. But also, we are not looking at only education, we are looking at the quality. What if somebody drops out from senior 4? what can this person do? Do they have the skills that can enable them to move on? We are looking at inequalities in education. You hear some schools are doing very well, for example, King's College Budo, Matas Namugongo, but there are these other schools, the UP schools, which are the schools for the disadvantaged children. What do they get? And then how do they do it in other countries? For instance, if you are in Germany, you will find that education, in fact, the inequality between the poorest school and the medium school is very, very small. Somebody who is in a school that serves the disadvantaged children is actually as good as that one which serves a member of parliament. And indeed, in countries like Germany, you find that teachers are well paid, and therefore they commit very good services to education sector. So I think, first of all, really, I want the diaspora to interact more with us here, especially we who are in the NGO world and also with the private schools, so that we close that gap, the gap which is there. We have very many challenges in education, and indeed, our eyes are with working with the diaspora, because they have seen, they appreciate education, they have a lot they can connect between the countries where they live and also here. Why? First of all, they are there, they have seen the good and the bad, and they have also been here. Some of them, they know the life we experience. So these are the best people to support our education sector. And remember, for every country to develop, it must have a firm foundation for studying, a firm foundation of population which is well schooled, which has skills. That's why countries like Japan are very rich, yet 70% of Japan really is almost a wasteland. Yes.
Well, I think very much, Nathan. Yes, back to Henrietta. I believe you still are online because the issue of education, ideally government cannot go it alone, and that's why we have liberalization. We had liberalization where the private sector has actually to come in, and people of goodwill. Now, let's look at the US where you are. What are the good practices, education practices that you think the Ugandan government, people in Uganda, especially in the education sector, can adopt?
Thank you so much, Mr. Cole. And I couldn't have agreed more with what Mr. Gahung just said. The private sector, the NGOs, would do a better job when they partner with us in the diaspora, because the human capital that we have here is just so immense, and it's just waiting to be tapped into to make sure that we add something, we bring our flavor, we bring our expertise home and help those kids, especially those that are right from early childhood all the way to tertiary, to the tertiary institutions. I think when you come to the question that you just asked, what good practices that the government can copy or learn from the US to bring back home, it all comes back to the curriculums. I'm sorry, I think I'm getting an echo from your side, so maybe your media people may want to correct that, but I hope that you can hear me well. But I think what the government needs to do is to maybe look at the curriculum. If you look at the way we were taught when we went to school back in the day, you would find that we had so many courses that we had to do right from primary through to secondary, and you'll find that a lot of people did a lot of cram work. We were studying subjects that some of us even today ask ourselves why we even were studying such subjects, because as we are working, as we are interacting in the communities, as we are engaging ourselves in our profession and in our professionals, we don't even have anything we use when we come to those things that we are doing. What I've seen here in the US is they kind of have broken down their curriculum, whereby even that child that fails, let's say, senior 4, can be able to be equipped with some professional at the end of the day. They have their colleges, whereby these colleges have broken down curriculums that actually equip the young people with the skills they need to go and make it in the world. They are looking more at the technical part of it, because they know that that is what the children need. For example, look at what is going on in the world today. We are on Zoom. I'm in the US, you are in Uganda. When it comes to computers, computer science, anything to do with online learning, that is the way now we should be looking at, and that's the way we should be moving forward as a nation, as a country. Look at our children that are home today because they cannot be in school due to COVID. We should be equipping them with means to be able to at least learn a thing or two, so that even if they are home for, let's say, 6 months, they can still be able to catch up with other kids who maybe were able to even go to school or were allowed to go to school for a certain period of time. So how does the government do that? The government has to look at what we are doing here in the West, learn a thing or two. For example, find ways as to how people here were coping during COVID to teach their children. I have a child here at home. She was lucky that her school had small classes, so she was able to attend classes during COVID, but there are those that we are not able to attend. How were we able to make sure that they got what they needed? We were able to bring we were able to do home learning. We were able to bring the classes back here at home. The parents were able to tune in with this, the educators, the teachers, and we were able to help the children get used to learning from home using these computers. Now, are our children in the village able to do that? I doubt it. But we have other means such as radios, TVs. We can even make sure that maybe the government works with the local leaders, the LC1s and so on, and find ways of having certain teachers be able to distribute materials to these kids so that these kids can still be able to learn a thing or two, even if they are at home. As a parent, I have an extended family in Uganda. I have children that I still take care of, children who have relatives, those that are not able to put them to school, but I'm encouraging them to make sure that they get materials, things such as books from these scholastic materials that we used to use long ago, and they have been stocking up on those. And the children are learning from home, even as they are at home and not at school, because I don't want them to go back to school and feel like they are green and do not even understand what the teachers are doing in class. So I think we just need to make sure that we work with the government to make sure that our children at home in Uganda are not left out at the end of the day.
Nablia, for the submission. Yes, back to Gahungu, because what are the critical challenges in our education system, perhaps in our schools, that require urgent address?
Of course, in Uganda, just like any other African country, education sector, like other sectors, they face enormous challenges. But again, I want to look at a few of them. And of course, most of them, I know they are related funding. But again, there are those ones which we can do even with minimum funds. But some of the biggest challenges we have, first of all, we have the teachers who are not motivated to teach. In relating to what our sister in diaspora is saying, you see, for them, when they are in the US or in any other country, they are extremely committed to the work they are doing. In fact, people say they get a lot of money, but in actual sense, they work for it. Therefore, we have teachers who are not motivated, and this one is affecting our children. For instance, if you look at the performance of most of the teachers in UP schools, they have not performed very well. That is coming from lack of motivation. But of course, when you ask them, they relate it to funding. The other biggest issue, which I saw also, is we have a curriculum which is not so good, which is not relevant today. She has already actually said it. Our curriculum today, what we teach does not help a student after studies. For instance, when you complete senior 4 here, you are considered almost useless. When you finish P7, But in actual sense, every step you make in education is supposed to help you. Even if you drop out of P7, you are supposed to come out somebody. That's why you studied. That's those one who studied in 1960s. Some of them are the millionaires today because they were given quality education, they were given relevant education. So there is a need to review our curriculum so that whatever we teach is relevant. But also, there is a challenge with the way the government is supervising the whole education. Now, in fact, I'm trying to run away from the usual problem of lack of funding, but focusing on what the government can do. For instance, supervision in schools is extremely poor. One time I was talking to a member of parliament, actually my member of parliament, he was saying, how can you be a head teacher and you own a school? How can you be an education officer, you own a school? In fact, there is a minister whom we know owns schools. In that case, there is a conflict of interest and supervision. So here, there is a challenge also of supervision of schools. You remember this gentleman called Fajir Mande, when he was still a commissioner, he would really supervise schools, he would do a lot. So the challenge of supervision in the education sector is really a terrible. Then we have also problems of school dropouts. We have problems of where girls are not given priority. They face a number of challenges as girls, girl students, girl pupils, but they are not adequately supported. One time I witnessed a girl where we were at school, she was in her menstrual cycle. And when the blood came, we all laughed at her and she never came back to school. And I have discovered that many of them actually don't turn up. So the challenges are many. For example, even I wonder if the government has put in place a mechanism of tapping into our people in the diaspora. Now that actually we have our sister who is here, you see, they are interested in the earning which they get, but they are not also interested in harvesting that experience, that knowledge that they have. There should be a pool of a way, because they may not give money, but they can get that knowledge.
Of course, knowledge is power. Now, if you can hold on to your point, back to Henrietta, he has brought in something very important. How do we tap into your capacities? How do we tap into your actual skills? Because you really did talk about it, that yes, it's high time you worked with the NGO in the promotion of education. But let's look at government. How is government working with you so that they can better the situation in our schools?
Okay. We haven't really had a chance to say we are working with government to better our schools. But one thing that I want to point out is when you look at Africa per se, there's a lot of brain drain. There's a lot of brain drain because people are looking for higher paying posts in other countries, whether it's within Africa. For example, one can run away from Uganda to South Africa, to Mozambique, to Botswana if they get a better job. You can also have someone run away from Uganda to, let's say, the US, the UK, the United Arab Emirates, that is the diaspora, because they are looking for the same. So until we have our own institutions at home, start giving our Ugandans more palatable salaries and competitive salaries, you will still have that, you'll still continue having that issue of brain drain. So how can the government work with us in the diaspora to mitigate this? We can work with you, for example, as entities such as UNA, and build a relationship where we can share the information of our people who are professionals, who are willing to come back home and take up posts. Like I said, our human capital in the diaspora has various skill sets. They have connections. They have various connections within education entities. We have professors. We have doctors. And what I have seen with these professors, doctors, they actually usually have exchange programs. They usually bring children from Uganda to, for example, the US, the UK, so that these kids can come and learn what we do here and then take those skill sets back to Uganda. Now, when you see that have someone here that is doing such a thing, I think as government, tap into this person, see if you can lure them to come back and actually bring whatever skill sets they have learned in the diaspora back home, because that means that you're actually helping the education entity back home. So like I said, you have to offer competitive pay, competitive income, competitive salaries to these teachers so that they can be able to stay in the country and be able to actually invest more in the children. Like Mr. Gahungu said, it is a motivation factor. When someone is not compensated as they should, definitely you're going to find them unmotivated. They'll go to school and even maybe not teach the children. And I believe that teachers are really underpaid. Teachers are underlooked. Look at what has happened to us here in the past 2 years with COVID. That is when people started really realizing how important teachers are, because we had to now become the teachers as parents in our homes. You had a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old ask you questions, and sometimes you didn't even know how to answer that 6-year-old because you went to school a long time ago. And this is something that we have pushed on to teachers as parents. We rarely even sometimes look into the books, some of us, to say we are looking at what the homework is that these kids are coming with. Because I remember in Uganda when I was going to school, all I had to do is make sure I was working so hard. And even when I didn't know what to do, I had to go for coaching. So the parents shift that responsibility solely onto the teacher. Now, when COVID came, the parents had to take over. And that became a very tough job for the parents. You'll find that you were having children who were even being abused in the houses by their parents because they didn't have that patience to make sure that they were taking care of these kids. So I think what the government has to do, like we said in the beginning, is come and build those relationships with these organizations that have these professionals so that you tap into those skill sets and get them back home to help rebuild and even, broaden the knowledge when it comes to what we have learned here. Like Mr. Gahungu said, we need to have relevant courses that are helping our people back home. There is no need for me to go and cram a textbook, come out of school, and I cannot even apply what I crammed in that textbook in my everyday life. But if you go and put me in an institution and you give me the skill sets to survive, I'll be able to go out in the world and be able to survive at the end of the day.
You had really talked about technology because now you are in the US, we are here in Uganda, but you can see technology is bringing us together. And now this brings us to how do we advance technology in our education system. Because even much as tertiary institutions here in Uganda are being allowed to go on with teaching virtually, you'll realize that actually some even tertiary institutions are struggling. Now, when it comes to secondary schools and primary schools, it's only private schools that are actually managing. So how do we, the issue of technology, you people in the diaspora, especially in North America, how far can you go in working with government so that you can assist to bridge this technological gap?
We have so many people who are equipped in that field. We have so many Ugandans who are working in Silicon Valley that actually yesterday I was on a call with 3 gentlemen that were introduced to me by one long-time UNA member, Mr. Idris Chironde, and they were telling me, yeah, we haven't been here so long, but we work in the Silicon Valley. The Silicon Valley is in California, and it's known for technology. That's where you find the Google, the Facebook, the big tech companies, Microsoft. We can actually look at people such as those and seek guidance from them on how to perfect our systems at home when it comes to technology, because technology is going to play a very big role moving forward post-COVID, whether it's for private schools, whether it's for government schools. We are going to have to embrace it. I think the other thing that we have to do is to start looking at ways of getting partnerships with the main tech companies and see how they can help us get our systems revamped in Uganda. I would not want to come and attend a class whereby, for example, I just have to load so many MBs, and when I'm out of those MBs, automatically my computer is logging off. I want to have a consistent system whereby I know that these students are not going to get any interruptions at the end of the day. So how do we do this? Education, education, education. Change the curriculum. Make sure that the kids are getting the skills they need to make sure that they are the next future teachers to their fellow students at home. We may partner with these people, we may get the computers, we may get the systems we need, but if we do not have the human resource to teach the kids these things, then we are not going to be able to be successful. So before we even look at how you're partnering with us to bring the systems home, we have to invest in the children at home to be able to learn how to use those systems. Some weeks ago, I was looking at one of the young ladies that's here in California that is an expert in IT, but has decided to help the kids at home to learn to teach them programming. And she's been doing this online. And she takes the vulnerable, those that are less fortunate, and they are the ones that she's concentrating on. And I was like, kudos to this young girl, because this young lady is has just finished high school. I think she's in college, but she went out of her way and used her expertise, her resources she has learned here to try and pass it on to the children at home. And you could see the videos that were passed around, that the children at home were so excited that they were learning from someone who is in the US. This is someone who has never met them physically, but they are using these resources, Zoom, any other online resources, to make sure that they are helping the children in Uganda while they're at home and are unable to attend school. So I think these are the things that the Ministry of Education can be looking at to see how they can help our children back home, and also help the education system and the schools, the government schools in Uganda. But as I said, diaspora, we are always here to help. We are always here ready to partner, whether it's with the NGOs, whether it is with government, to make our country better. What can we say? We are the first ambassadors of our country at the end of the day. And we would like to see Uganda in a better, seen in a better picture than where it is.
Well, thank you, Henrietta. And we come back to studio to Gahungu Nathan. Because you really did talk about the motivation of really teachers, and you talked about Germany. You remember the Chancellor of Germany saying that teachers are highly paid because they are doing a great job, and that's why Germany has one of the great or best education systems. Now, how do we borrow relief from Germany so that we can perhaps we can also get the best practices applied in our system here? Before I actually answer your question, I want to emphasize what Henrietta said, that invest in our children to be able to cope up with the current technological challenges. And how do we invest? That's the very point. Yes. It's a point where the government should focus, because they are talking about learning, online learning, digital learning, but they are not looking at children with the skills. In fact, what she has said, I wish it could be captured very well, and we see if it can help here in Uganda. Because otherwise, in the villages, over 50%, they don't know a computer. They don't know how to use a computer. Even some of the primary teachers. Yes, even the primary teachers. I was even talking to a secondary school teacher who doesn't know how to use a computer. A laptop. I think that one is something critical. It has to be taken on. Now, I think still, when we come to Germany, first of all, in Germany, a teacher is one of the highly paid civil servants. So the trick is motivate teachers, and we see results. That's why people have been asking themselves, why are private schools doing better? Why are some big schools doing better? They are doing better because they have focused on remunerating teachers very well, on motivating teachers very well. And they have made sure that the schools have facilities. If it's a lab is equipped and it is there. Schools have computers, pupils and students have computers, and indeed, the education system is doing very well. If you look at their policies, if you look at their curriculum,
everything is tailored towards development, towards quality education. Therefore, that's key. But again, I want to emphasize that investing in the pupils, especially to cope up with the current situations, is extremely important. It's something that the government should take on.
Yeah, Gahungu, you have a background of being a teacher. And let's look at, we've seen a number of interventions by government. Education Standards Agency, we've seen teacher resource centers, we've seen teachers refresher courses. Now they are coming up with UNITE Uganda and National Institute of Teacher Education. They are coming up with the National Teachers Policy. Why is it that all those interventions on the plight of teachers seem not to be working?
True, we have developed a number of good policies, regulations, and laws. We have commissions, we have a number of bodies dealing with that.
Inspectorates.
Everything.
Yes,
but
yes.
as I mentioned, we are lacking implementation, effective implementation. But apart from implementation, we also lack supervision. Schools are being run anyhow. Policies are put in place, they are not functioning. So what we want here is to make sure that policies are working, supervision is taking place, motivation is taking place, and indeed there is that commitment. But I'm even very much surprised that the only way our country can benefit from those developed countries, actually the only way we can effectively fetch from them is to to use our diaspora to bring resources back home. But I am surprised that there is no proper legal framework to make sure that we tap through them. Like what she is communicating, it is something that should be channeled directly to our government. I know we have embassies, but I've ever visited these embassies there. They are not as effective as they are supposed to be. I wish the government would put up a legal framework to effectively, for instance, engage Henrietta. What she has to communicate comes directly here in the Ministry of Education, or there is a body that is able to capture these resources. Otherwise, if you have a person who is seated in somebody's house, he's supposed to give you information, and that information should help you to develop. Now, it is the only way that we can steal from UK. We run from them, we bring it home. That's what they did also some times back. So I think, as the question you have asked, simply it's about motivation, then equipping schools and making sure that all the facilities are there. Where I know our government always cry lack of funding, but there is also a need for commitment, because we have seen these things happening in the past. In the 60s, Uganda had a very, very good education system. Makerere University was well known world over, but today no one wants even to come to our school, which is even in Kampala where the parliament sits.
Well, thank you very much, Nathan. Yes, back to Henrietta. You've really talked about government tapping into your various capacities. We've seen on a number of occasions during those good old days before actually COVID disrupted the normal operations of the world. The president time and again was always invited at your Uganda North American Association convention. We also saw that the speaker, especially the former speaker, Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, a number of times she would actually fly to the US with a number of members of parliament. The First Lady herself has on a number of occasions interacted with you. So one wonders that all these interactions I've mentioned, do they begin and end with taking photos, just maybe perhaps parting and then it ends there, or perhaps there is an in-depth discussion that is supposed to inform policy formation and perhaps come up with an action plan for the education sector?
You are right. We have had a couple of high-level government officials that have attended these conventions. We have had discussions when they come to attend. We have had Her Excellency the First Lady come and even attend the convention in 2009. I know that she's the Minister of Education right now, but we should also remember that when she came in 2009, she was actually Minister of Karamoja then. And she had done a lot of good work in that area. And we have a forum called the Northern Ugandan Forum. And that's why she attended that convention, because she was invited to come and enlighten us on what has been done and the good works that had been done for Northern Uganda. Because today, Northern Uganda is not what it was 20 years ago. And we actually commend them for a good job that they did to bring back that area to its glory as it should. But what I have seen with these conventions is we have the high level people come and actually talk to us, offer us support. And the problem that happens at the end of the day is continuity and lack of information. When they return back home, we sometimes get the bottlenecks and get sometimes blocked by, let's say, people in the ministries. You may have a high level person come and talk to you, and you pitch an idea and say, we have such and such a person who maybe wants to come and open up a school. And this person is so willing to work with you to make sure that that happens. But when the reality comes and you go to Uganda to try and make these things happen, it is so hard to sometimes navigate around and try to get people to help you to actually implement these ideas you had, either due to people who are corrupt and they are trying to get money from you to be able to do such and such a thing, whereas you even had that high-level person talk to you and encourage and assure you that it will happen. But you'll find that the other people in the offices are the ones who may frustrate you to getting these things done. So what do we learn from this, and maybe how can they correct this? We have so many entities in Uganda that have diaspora desks, but these diaspora desks are sometimes not really working towards our problems as diasporans. They're not taking care of our issues as diasporans, but they are there in Uganda and they are called diaspora desks. If Henrietta came today and wanted, for example, to take care of issues concerning her land, you don't have anyone at the diaspora desk that is able to take care of that. I still have to go to the lands office, battle it out with right from the first clerk to maybe the last person in the office that will sign off whatever I need to be signed to get that done. And I don't have time, like for example, a month or so to be able to process that paperwork because I have to run back to either my job in the diaspora. So what we really need from government is to sit down with the diasporan organizations and put down processes, entities that are going to take care of our needs as diaspora, so that we can also, in return, come with confidence, trust the systems, and be able to invest in things such as education fully without fear as well. Because, by the way, trust is one of the main problems that we have here in the diaspora. Trust in our own relatives, trust in the systems back home, trust because there is a lot of corruption. And we just want to always make sure that we are not faced with problems when we come to either invest in education. Now, are we saying that people have not been successful? People have been successful. People such as the Haj and Hajat Luyombo, I think you know Taiba. They live in Canada, they are diasporans, but they have run those entities for quite some time in Uganda. If you know Taiba Schools, that is a whole group of schools that is owned by someone in the diaspora. We have people like Mr. Luanga that have Lwachise Primary School in Nyanzi, a school that is flourishing slowly. Some people may not know it, but it is owned by someone in the diaspora. We have one of the pastors here in Chicago that actually has had very good results from his school, Pastor Yahweh. We have St. Max Namungona, a college that was established because of collaboration between relatives and actually is flourishing. We have Viva College in Jinja. We have so many schools that have been put up by diasporans. that are successful. Why? Maybe because they have some kind of framework that's working for them. They are motivating their teachers to make sure that the teachers are teaching these kids. They are being supervised well, as Mr. Gahungu has suggested that government should do. So until I guess we get some of these things done right, we will either continue having problems at home, but if we really want to improve the systems, there are some realistic matters that we have to take care of back home, right from government to be able to successfully engage diaspora. But as I said, yes, diaspora, we are ready. Even in the upcoming convention, we are having the Literate Earth Project. CEO come and talk to people on how to help schools build up libraries in Uganda, how to help increase the readership in Uganda. These are people that we partner with here, and we would like them to successfully implement these projects in Uganda, successfully work with the NGOs there, whether it's private schools, whether it's government schools. But for us, at the end of the day, what we are looking for is to make sure that our people back home, our children, are successful. We already know that they are suffering as it is.
Yeah,
COVID hasn't been easy on
Henrietta,
anyone.
if you can hold on to your point, because I have to get back to Gahungu here in studio, because you've really talked about the issue of private schools. Of course, schools that are being that are successful are run by those in the diaspora. But Gahungu, we realize that we have a problem with liberalization of education. That liberalization of education was meant to supplement government efforts, but now it has turned into a business, a full-fledged business, whereby now actually it has even widened the gap between the child of the rich and the child of the poor.
Yes, in fact, that one is one of the challenges we have identified, and we have tried to talk to the people in the government to reduce, to work out a mechanism of ensuring that the private people are not driven by profit. They must provide quality education and provide education as a service to the community. Indeed, as you have said, education is supposed to supplement the government effort, the private education. Now, one of the issues that I was telling you prior is that government has neglected its role of supervision. The other one is the conflict of interest. If you look at people who own the schools, they are the same people that are supposed to supervise schools. I don't like to be controversial, but I want to talk about there is a minister who owns schools.
Yeah,
his schools perform very well.
We may not talk about the minister who owns schools and the schools are performing well, but let's look at the general picture.
Let me take it in general. So I have been looking, I made a sample, I made a quick research, and looked at who owns best schools, who owns. You find they are either teachers in government schools. And now I asked one teacher, why is your school performing better? And where you teach. So that's a reason, that's one of the biggest problem. The other one, of course, is supervision, but also the issue of individualism. We are in a where price mechanism is at its peak. People are driven by money and individualism. We are no longer patriotic. We are no longer looking at our country first. We are looking at ourselves first. Now, one thing we have to do, we have to put up a mechanism of ensuring that performance is driven by quality, not by excellence, maybe in marks. For example, how many, a certain school has got 8 in first grade. That language should reduce. What we want is the output. Can we produce good doctors? Can people produce people with skills? Now, with that, I think we shall manage this. But again, as we have said, there is a serious challenge between private schools for profit, not actually for provision of education as a service.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, back to Henrietta. Henrietta, sorry for mispronouncing your name. Well, in Uganda, we are actually fixed, our mind is fixed on grades. First grades at primary, first grades at senior 4, senior 6. first class at university, first class or second class upper. But at the end of the day, we never see those grades when it comes to services, when they begin serving the community. Now, how do we transform this third grade at primary to a first grade at secondary school? I think that is where we need to focus. That somebody got a third grade, but the third grade has turned into has actually transformed society. Then the other also, I also wish that you also comment, because time is not on our side, is the way forward for education, because Uganda, especially in Uganda, the sectors that have been hard hit by the pandemic is the education sector.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. And I think you are right. We have a lot of schools producing very good results. But like Mr. Gahungu said, the output at the end of the day doesn't reflect what those results are. And that's why we said there's a need to review the curriculum. If you have a third, let's say a child that is that is getting third grade, how would you be able to bump them up to first grade? Of course, you have to bump them up to first grade by empowering them, by giving them the resources that they need to be able to learn and be able to pull themselves up to that other child that's doing that's performing at first grade. But what kind of education are you teaching them? Are they cramming books, or are they going to get out of school and be able to survive at the end of the day? We have to look at our curriculums. We have to see that what we are teaching the children is that kind of education that's going to equip them to survive in the realities of the world today. I think that is going to be something that the whole, the government has to look at critically and look at how they can change their systems. The realities are we have been hit by a pandemic that has kind of changed the course of how we have been doing our business. Business is no longer normal. We had to get out of our comfort zones. We are learning new skills. We are learning new things that have taken a different direction. Like I said, I'm on Zoom today and I'm talking to you guys, something that we were not doing, let's say 2, 3, 4 years ago. So something is going to happen to Uganda. They are going to have to critically look at their curriculums in schools and be able to change them. The other thing is to look at how they are compensating their teachers. And that will be a big motivating factor in changing the way teachers are moving forward. But also, Mr. Gahungu talked about conflict of interest. I think we should not forget about that. We should look at people who are either owning these institutions, but at the same time, other people who are in leadership. I think they have to rethink the way they are doing things, and that comes to supervision from the government. In order for you to actually be successful at implementing something, you should be able to make sure that you bring everyone to the table. You should be able to bring people to be accountable for their actions. If you are going to be running stellar schools, then it should go across the border. If you are going to be running stellar schools, you should be able to talk to those with private schools and tell them, yes, you're supplementing what the governments have put here, what the government has put here when it comes to education in the country. But please, do not become more of, do not overdo it in terms of overcharging parents. Looking at the back first instead of the output that the children come out with at the end of the day. Because when we look at all the children at the end of the day, we would love to see a successful country. We would love to see a country that produces results. We would love to see that all the kids are coming out and not becoming a burden to the country at the end of the day. And we also would love to see that our products of Uganda stay in Uganda and empower the other generations. and lessen on the brain drain. So I think these are realistic things that we are going to have to look at as a country, but I think the curriculum has to be revisited for sure if we want to succeed. So, and also, when it comes to private and public education, there needs to be some real hard decisions taken by government to be able to have public education stay as competitive to private education.
Thank you. Back to Gahungu, because she has really talked about the issue of the curriculum. And this reminds me of Pastor Vujingo's words, that you study about the Canadian prairies, the Tennessee Valley, and at the end of the day, you cannot even get a visa to Canada, to the USA. We've also seen situations where people know actually the US, UK, including even their teams, then actually they know their own country. So don't you think really the education system, the curriculum must be should be designed in such a way that not only empowers you with the skills, but also sufficient information that can enable you to transform your country?
Interestingly enough, they reviewed the curriculum. And indeed, when they reviewed the curriculum, I thought that the government would seriously implement this curriculum. What is in the curriculum today is a bit improved compared to what was there previously. But still, our government lacks effective implementation. Whatever law is there, they don't follow it. Even when they try to, they don't do it with commitment. So everything, not everything, but I think most of the things, I don't know if it's because of lack of funds or lack of patriotism or lack of commitment, things are not implemented. And those that are not implemented are implemented haphazardly. So for me, I call upon the government to make sure that the current program, the recently revised curriculum, is very well implemented. Because the previous program, another curriculum, was mainly promoting other countries, and therefore it was driving citizens from loving their own country. And we would grow up thinking of other places. Like, for example, me, I had said, if I don't reach Rhinelands, I would perhaps never be happy. And indeed, I went there. So that's not good. I even see the football. You can hear our younger children talking Manchester, Arsenal, Chelsea, and so on. Why can't it be local? Maybe supporting Villa, supporting KCC, all of that. So I think what we need a government that is effective in implementation, because...
Well, I can see time is not our best ally. I would beg that you look into the camera, and in a word or two, if you had a chance to meet the First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports, what is it that you'd wish to tell her so that perhaps if it is implemented, it would turn around our education?
For me, what I would ask the First Lady is to make sure that they put up a desk, a fully-fledged desk that is in charge of diaspora, because the way to go to get quality education is to work with the diaspora, because they are there. They know why those countries are better than us in education. So I would request the First Lady to make sure that they put up a framework to work with the diaspora.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, back to Henrietta Wamala Ssenabulia. In a word or two, if you had a chance to meet His Excellency, what is it that you would tell him, so that, request him to, so that perhaps our education system can be turned around?
I would echo the same words of Dr. Gahungu, and that is to make sure that they put up a diaspora desk that really works for us as diasporans on all various issues that we have. When it comes to education, since that is why you invited me here today, goes the same thing as Mr. Gahungu said. That diaspora desk that they put up should have a section which should just take care of education. Work with us as diasporans, look at what partnerships we bring on board, work with us to see if we can help tap into the skill sets that they are looking for in Uganda. be able to be their voice in case we have to, in case we have to check with our own diasporans and see those people who would love to come back and give back to their country by teaching in Uganda or serving in any other ways. Like I said, we are always here. We are open to discussion. We are always open to partnerships. And when it comes to education, that is something that we believe in, because most of us, that is why we traveled. We were able to learn so much at home. We were able to even come here and learn from here. Why? Because we were given that opportunity. We were given that foundation that made us who we are today. So yes, work with the diaspora, but let us have a desk that works for us as diaspora and can help us partner with the entities home and actually is effective. Implementation, as Mr. Gahungu said. That is something that will have to be worked on well to be able to be successful. But